Hi, Josh. It's so exciting to start our Halloween topics on this podcast.
Yeah, what do we get to talk about today, Sarah?
Ghosts. I have a little cat ghost here.
Ooh, scary.
Yeah. Well, Salem has become ghost hunting central, but our listeners have to hear about what ghosts actually meant in 1692. Because the people of Salem didn't just believe in ghosts, they used them as evidence. They testified about them in court. They hanged people because of their belief in ghosts. So let's break down exactly what kinds of supernatural beings were showing up in those Salem courtrooms and what they were there to do.
By the way, welcome to The Thing About Salem. I'm Josh Hutchinson.
And I'm Sarah Jack. Happy Halloween season.
Happy Halloween season, everybody. We'll begin with a ghost story. So one evening, Ann Putnam Jr. is at home when the specter of former Salem Village Minister George Burroughs appears unto her. He tortures her. Ouch. Ooh. He's choking and pricking and poking and pinching. And he's got something with him. A book. It's red. It has a strange little glow to it. The Devil's Book. And he has a message. Anne, my first two wives will appear to you now, and they will tell you lies. With that, two women in winding sheets, their funeral clothes, with napkins on their heads, as it's described in the record, appear in the room along with George Burroughs. Anne was so scared. Ghosts! Not only is it a witch in the room, there's ghosts! The ghosts turn their faces towards Mr. Burroughs. They turn red with anger. Literally red ghosts full of anger, and they tell him he'd been a cruel man to them. Their blood cries for vengeance against him, and they will be clothed with white robes in heaven when he should be cast into hell. And immediately, George Burroughs vanished away, and the two women turned towards Anne, their faces now white and pale. They were Mr. Burroughs' first two wives, they say. He murdered them. One says, Anne, I was his first wife, until he stabbed me under the left arm. He sealed it with a piece of wax on the wound to cover up his crime. And the ghost pulls aside her winding sheet and shows, here's where I was stabbed. And the other one says, Anne, I'm the second wife. And he killed me with the woman who's now his third wife, while I was in a vessel coming up to see my friends, because the two of them wanted to be together. Now both ghosts tell Anne to tell these things to the magistrates while Burroughs is in the room with them. And if he doesn't own his murders, his dead wives are going to appear to him in court. And then the next morning, what happens? More ghosts come to Anne. Mrs. Lawson and her daughter Anne. This is the wife of another former minister, Deodat Lawson, with her daughter appearing to Ann Putnam Jr. and saying, Burroughs murdered us too, out of jealousy. And then another woman appears to Anne in a winding sheet and says, Anne, I was Goodman Fuller's first wife, and Mr. Burroughs killed me because he had a difference with my husband. And the ghosts went away. And Anne went to court to proclaim bloody murder.
What book did you read this in?
This comes right from the records of the Salem Witch Hunt. This is a deposition that Ann Putnam Jr. gives on May 9th, 1692. She's telling this fresh story. It just happened that night, and then that very morning that she gives the testimony, these other ghosts appear to her, and they're all crying for vengeance. They're raging against their murderer.
So there were different kinds of apparitions that were showing up in those Salem records.
One that was in this story was George Burroughs coming as a specter, which is the spectral form or shape of a living accused witch appearing to torment victims. This is also known as a shape. This is just another word for specter. It says that, oh, George Burroughs appeared in his shape. That's the same as saying that his specter showed up, and it wasn't actually his physical body. It was something that had left from him to go and torment people.
Moving over to another woman who was accusing during the witch trials, Susanna Sheldon, testified that a shining man, also called a white man, and later identified as an angel from heaven, appeared to protect her from John Willard's threats. So this was a protective heavenly figure who was helping the afflicted. This figure banishes Willard's apparition, so it intervenes in just by holding up its hand. And then it revealed murder victims' wounds by lifting winding sheets, even opening his own winding sheet. So this murdered person pulls out a pitchfork from his left side, showing how he'd been murdered.
There's also a report of a white man appearing as a sort of spectral vision apparition. This is reported by Mary Walcott when Elizabeth Proctor and Sarah Cloyce are being examined. The magistrate asks her, have you seen a white man? And she says, yes, he's a fine, grave man. And when he came, he made all the witches to tremble.
So we had the shining man, the white man, and then the apparition of Satan, they referred to as the black man. And it was Satan himself appearing to lure and make covenants, offering books to sign, or assisting the accused witches in their tormenting.
We also had another great Halloween phenomenon in the Salem Witch Trials. There were reports of a haunted house. George Burroughs denied that his house in Maine was haunted, but he admitted that there were toads.
And then, of course, we've been talking about these murder victims appearing to accuse their killers and demand justice. They're usually dressed in winding sheets. Those are ghosts.
Ghosts, just straight up ghosts. And they get to tell you about the witch that killed them. Apparently that's all they care about is vengeance and justice. One of the big ghost sightings that's reported fairly early in the actual trial phase of the Salem Witch Trials, Susanna Sheldon, Mary Walcott, Elizabeth Hubbard, and Ann Putnam Jr. all agree that they're seeing 13 ghosts lying dead before Martha Carrier, the Queen in Hell, during her examination. And 13 corresponds with the number of people who died in a smallpox outbreak in 1690 that Martha Carrier is blamed for. So they're saying that all of those people that died because she brought smallpox to the town are back in the courtroom denouncing her.
Ann Putnam Sr. was a believer in ghosts. They're all throughout her testimony against accused witches, including against my ninth great grandmother, Rebecca Nurse. Ann Putnam Sr. claimed that her 6 deceased nieces from Boston came calling her auntie. So she knew it was her nieces. So these ghosts are speaking from the invisible world to the visible world. Auntie Ann, Rebecca Nurse murdered us.
We've already heard from Ann Putnam Jr. about a few ghosts. She also claimed to see, along with Mary Walcott, Ann Putnam Sr.'s uncle John Carr's ghosts in a winding sheet, accusing Mary Bradbury of his murder.
When Hannah Putnam gave her ghost story as testimony, she said that Samuel Fuller and Lydia Wilkins appeared and threatened to tear her to pieces.
And then Mary Walcott testified that 8, not just 6 or 7, but 8 apparitions and winding sheets appeared before Job Tukey, who was one of the accused, looking pale upon her, but red when they looked upon him, and crying out for vengeance. So you have that detail again. They're pale when they're talking to somebody, but then when they look at whoever murdered them, they turn red.
Now, this one is really juicy. This comes right out of a letter from Thomas Putnam, Ann Sr.'s husband, father of Ann Putnam Jr. They testified that a ghost in a winding sheet appeared, revealing that Giles Corey had murdered a man years earlier by pressing him to death with his feet.
This apparition appears, and the letter is written, right when Giles Corey is about to be pressed to death because he's refusing to stand trial. Giles Corey allegedly, according to this apparition of the man that he killed, pressed him to death with his feet. So therefore, it's almost appropriate that Giles Corey is getting pressed. It's like karma coming back for vengeance against him.
Did you know that after a victim was hanged, she turned up as a ghost? That's right. Mary Herrick, who was age 17, testified that Mary Estes' ghost appeared after her execution, saying, "I am innocent. Vengeance, vengeance." That's intense.
All these ghosts are crying out vengeance. Apparently, like murder by witchcraft was believed to be very common back then, or at least after the fact, after the witch trial started, they start looking back at all these suspicious deaths and thinking, oh, maybe the witches had a hand in it.
Yeah, so this is one of the role of ghosts, alleging magical murders.
Yeah, it's more bad evidence against the people accused of witchcraft, because murdering someone with witchcraft is definitely a capital offense, and it's absolutely the worst thing that you can do, whether with witchcraft or without. So, other things like cursing somebody's livestock aren't as serious as saying, hey, you were guilty of 13 murders or 8 murders or however many murders all these people are being accused of, who of course had nothing to do with these deaths. It's just remarkable how many of these allegations there are in the Salem Witch Trials.
It definitely helped the jurors find the accused guilty by putting blood on their hands. Ghosts are aggressively demanding the afflicted testify to the magistrates. Some ghosts even promised that they would appear directly to the magistrates if their word wasn't believed, and the accusations of past murders were used to establish patterns of witchcraft, securing convictions.
Yes. So it was impactful, all these ghost stories that were being shared. It wasn't just for kicks that they're sharing these stories. They're sharing them as evidence, like you said at the beginning, to secure convictions. Now tourists hunt for Salem ghosts on paid tours. People put up money saying, I want to know about these ghost stories. There's so many about different inhabitants of Salem over the hundreds of years. It's celebrating its 400th anniversary next year. So 400 years of people living and dying in the city. That adds up to a lot of ghosts, apparently, because there's so many tours.
That is the thing about Salem.
Happy Halloween!
Happy Halloween.